Batman Catwoman issue 1, the first issue of a 12-part miniseries written by Tom King that is part of DC's Black Label, which is their mature line. It can be in continuity, it cannot be in continuity, it can be kind of both at the same kind of thing. It can have a little bit of language, a little bit of sex, a little bit of drug use, a little bit of more mature violence than, you'll say, the average ongoing continuity book. All that kind of stuff, giving Wise a little bit of sense of freedom. But the thing is, Tom King's a very, definitely when it comes to Batman, a very controversial writer. And his run of Batman is so controversial, like people love it or they hate it. Like, I stopped with I Am Suicide. The last issue of his run I read was winning issue, just because everyone was talking about it. Or at least the internet was talking about how Batman and Catwoman were going to get married. You know? And people got pissed that, they didn't get married at the end. There wasn't Mr. and Mrs. Wayne. There wasn't Selena Wayne and all that kind of stuff. They made a big deal. They were like, oh, look at this dress. It's so beautiful. I mean, the drawing of it is so beautiful and all that. People were cosplaying it and cosplaying the dress and all that kind of thing. And it was a big thing. And everybody got upset, went to shits and went crazy over this wedding. So people find his one very controversial. So how did he did this time? Like, he could be just, maybe, he works better in a loose, R-rated, hard PG-13 type story. Maybe. Maybe he works better in that context versus a kind of a sweated continuity that the ongoing continuity of DC ongoing series are. How is it? It's a jumbled mess, this first issue. A jumbled mess. And one of the big things was, Andrea Beaumont, the Phantasm, was going to be in there. Which I think is the first time that she's been in a comic. Like, isn't like, the Batman anime series, comic that's aimed for, like, kids. Like, this is like first time we ever getting to see Andrea in a comic that's like a true ongoing series of her that's in some kind of continuity. That's kind of neat. But the problem is they introduce this character in a jumbled way. Like, the story is like, I'll go and tell you the story, and it feels like a very simple story, does it not? Okay, Andrea Beaumont goes to Bruce, says, hey, my son's gone missing. I think he's in Gotham. Can you go and find him? And so Bruce and Selena go and try to track her son. You think that's a very simple fucking plan, a very simple issue, and a very simple point of the story, and it has a plot twist, and now you're like, okay, let's get some, this is kind of interesting. But it's merged with moments that felt totally unnecessary. Like, if you've seen the Masters of Phantasm movie, which is probably the second best Batman movie ever made, just above it, just below by Batman Begins. There's those jokes, those gags of Alfred walking onto Andrea and Bruce making out. They're there, but they felt so unnecessary. It's just there for a gag, really. It just felt like an absolutely nonsensical gag. Be like, remember this? It's like, I know, we laughed at it. It's funny, but the thing about it was funny, but it was also romantic at the same flipping time. It wasn't like, hey, Alfred accidentally walked on Bruce having sex. It's like, wait, 5? What is this? And I mean, talking about the romantic scenes, like, there's a conversation between Bruce and Selena, where basically Bruce is like, hey, Selena, can you please help me? Do you know anyone that could have a sense of knowledge where he is. And, you know, Selene's kind of, you know, recapping Master and Phantasm and the stuff with the Joker and all that kind of stuff. But it's about halfway through they make out like it's fucking rabbit season. And I'm like, why? Why? There's no need. There's no need to have a conversation. I mean, yes, is it cool? I mean, the next scene with them is cool. We see the Sewer King. Is this the first time that the Sewer King has been in a comic form? But probably that's outside, like, the main, you know, outside the Batman Adventures stuff, like, is the animated series stuff. The Sewer King, I think, has never been used. And he's talking about children's and you know, my children and has the crocodiles and he's in the throne and all that kind of stuff. He's, you know, completely the Sewer King. That's kind of neat. But then you merge with that with all this unnecessary shit or scenes and elements or moments that just felt so jumbled together. Like you had the stuff dealing with a older Selena, I'll say around her 40s, 50s, maybe, you know, 60s or something, where she is telling the story about the Phantasm and all that, and your head thinking, okay, we're doing a bit of like a Titanic type thing. Okay, cool, fine. But then you merge into this other shit with the Joker. It's like, how many pages? Like 40, 30-ish pages? Like, it's a quick read. But it's like, you're merging all this. And I'm like, dude, you have 12 issues. You can space this shit out. Like, sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm reading this scene. What's going on? Why am I here? Like, why are we having this scene with the Joker going, like, oh, we know who, you know, I can't do it. Oh, Selena, we know how trusty and twisty you are with the bat. Like, how much we have that? Like, seriously, someone please explain that. Like, I'm going to Rio 12. I'm going to Rio 12. Kind of Rio 12 for you guys. You know? And I just... This is just a bad... And the twist... And, I mean, here's the thing. The last, like, couple of pages kind of got me a little bit intrigued. It's the whole thing that... It's like, the thing that you want to press, but the ending kind of like, okay, I'm sticking along. You know, of a way of taking the Phantasm outfit. I'm like, ooh, let's get this started, kind of thing. But hopefully all this groundwork is kind of done. Let's start with this and make, for God's sake, make it some fluidity. Jesus Christ, some fluidity.